So there's a couple of examples. We're going to go over this first example. So it says solve the equation using elimination. So we need to eliminate one of the variables. So first thing that we're going to do, we're going to multiply the top equation by -1 so that these two x's have the opposite sign. So we're going to put a -1 on the outside of the top equation. We're going to put everything else in parentheses, and we are going to multiply by -1. So -1 times x is -1x. -1 times y is -1y. And then -1 times 2 is -2. I'm going to leave my second equation alone. I only need to multiply one of my equations by something. So I'm just going to bring this down as x minus y is equal to 4. So I don't have to do anything with that second equation. I just bring everything down. So now these two terms have opposite operations. So one is negative, one is positive. Whenever they're opposite, we're going to add the equations. So I'm going to we're going to add the equations. So we're going to put a little plus sign on the outside of here. So -1 plus 1, they cancel out. That's going to eliminate, that's 0. -1 plus -1 is going to give me -2y. And -2 plus 4 gives me a +2. So equals 2. So then I have to do the opposite of multiply by -2, which is to divide by -2. Divide both sides by -2. And that gives me that y is equal to 2 divided by -2, which is -1. And then we'll circle that because that's a part of our solution. So now that we have that y is equal to -1, I need to go back to one of my original equations. So I'll retype my first equation. That was x plus y equals 2. I'm going to substitute the y value of -1. So I'm going to keep the x the way it is. I'm going to substitute the y with a -1. And then I have that that's equal to 2. So I need to do the opposite of -1, which is +1. I'm going to add 1 on both sides. So x will equal 2 plus 1, which is 3. And we'll circle that. And then our solution is the coordinate. So the x and then the y. So the 3 and then the -1. That is our solution for number 1. So now we're going to solve the system of equations using elimination again. So notice that these x's are the same, but we need to have them be opposite signs. So I'm going to take that very first equation and I'm going to multiply it by -1, so that changes from a +1 to a -1 so that they're opposites. So -1 times x is -1x. -1 times 2y is -2y. So basically, when we multiply everything by a -1, it's just going to flip the signs. So the +3 will become a -3. Everything becomes the opposite because we're multiplying it by -1. And the bottom equation doesn't change at all. We're going to keep that as x minus y is equal to 6. So we only have to multiply one of the equations by -1 to change those signs to make them opposites. So just like we did in the first example, now I have a -1x and a +1x. So anytime they are opposites, we're going to add the equations. So I'm going to go ahead and add my like terms. So -1x plus 1x, those are going to eliminate, those equal 0. -2 plus -1, be careful with your negatives, that's -3y. -3 plus 6, that's equal to positive 3. So I have negative 3y is equal to positive 3. I need to do the opposite of multiply by negative 3. So that means I'm going to divide by negative 3. So that gives me y is equal to 3 divided by negative 3, which is equal to negative 1. So notice that we got the same answer. We got y is equal to negative 1. All right, so now that we have our y value, we're going to go back and use one of our original equations. So I'll use my top equation. X plus 2y is equal to 3. So I know that y is equal to negative 1, so I'm going to substitute that y value. So we have the x plus the 2, and then our y is equal to negative 1, so I'm going to substitute that there. And that's equal to 3. So now I just need to multiply 2 times negative 1, which gives me negative 2. Bring down my x, bring down my equals 3. I need to do the opposite of minus 2, which is add 2 on both sides. And x will equal 3 plus 2, which is 5. We'll go ahead and circle that. And our solution is the x, which is 5, and then the y, which is negative 1. So our solution is the coordinate 5, negative 1. Later. So this time we're going to solve this system using elimination. Notice that the x's aren't the same number this time. So this time we're actually going to eliminate the y's. So I'm going to highlight these y's. So I need to multiply one of my equations by negative 1 so that those are opposites. I don't want them both to be negative y. And I always just like to use the top equation. Doesn't really matter which one we use. So I'm going to multiply negative 1 by everything, which is basically just going to flip every sign. So this is going to become a negative 2x. This is going to become a positive 1y. And this is going to become a negative 4. So everything just changes its sign. And then the second equation, that stays the same. So we're just going to bring over our 3x minus y is equal to 2. So now that they are opposites, opposites means we're going to add the equations. And we're going to add them to eliminate y this time. So negative 2 plus 3, that's just 1. The y's eliminate, they cancel each other out. And then negative 4 plus 2 is equal to negative 2. So that one was actually pretty easy because we got that x is equal to negative 2. We only had to do one step there. And just like the other ones, once we have one of the variables, we're going to substitute it back into one of our original equations. And I just like to use the top equation because that's the one that shows up first. So anywhere there's an x in that equation, I'm going to substitute the number negative 2. So I'll bring down my 2, and then I'll replace this with a negative 2. And then I have my minus y is equal to 4. So 2 times negative 2, that's negative 4. Bring down our minus y and our equals 4. I need to do the opposite of minus 4, which is plus 4. So negative y equals 4 plus 4, which is 8. And then I have one more step. I need to zoom it in here. So the last step, technically this is a negative 1, so I'm going to write a 1 there. I need to do the opposite of multiply by negative 1, which is to divide by negative 1. So I'm going to put the little divide by negative 1. So y is equal to 8 divided by negative 1, which is negative 8. And our solution is the x, which is negative 2, comma the y, which is negative 8. All right, last example. So x minus 2y is equal to negative 2, and negative x plus y is equal to 3. So do you notice that the x and the negative x already have opposite signs? So we can go ahead and skip the first step. They're already opposite signs, so we don't need to multiply anything. So if they're opposites, we're going to add. So we can go straight to the adding part because they're already opposites. So x plus negative x, those cancel, those eliminate, those are going to be 0. Negative 2y plus y gives me negative 1y. And negative 2 plus 3, that gives me 1. So I have negative 1y is equal to 1. I need to do the opposite of multiply by negative 1, which is divide by negative 1. So y is equal 1 divided by negative 1, which is equal to negative 1. So that's the first part of my solution. So the second part of my solution, we go back to one of my original equations, and I'm just going to use the first one because that's the first one that I see. Everywhere that there's a y in that equation, I'm going to substitute the number negative 1. So I have x minus 2, and then we're going to times it by negative 1, and that's equal to negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 1, two negatives make a positive 2. So x plus 2 is equal to negative 2. And I need to do the opposite of plus 2, which is minus 2. So if I do that, I get that x is equal to negative 2 minus 2, which is equal to negative 4. So my solution is the x, which is negative 4, comma the y, which is negative 1. So our solution is 4, negative 1 for the last example.